Glory to Ukraine and to Ukrainian hearers. Welcome at the Military Media Center. 407 days of Ukrainian resistance to large-scale armed Russian aggression against Ukraine. Today, going to be briefed by the current state and prospects of the development of the civil-military cooperation of the armed forces of Ukraine. Colonel Volodymyr Liamzin, Chief of Civil-Military Cooperation Department of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. If you have any questions, we'll have the mic in the hall and you can ask your questions. Please welcome Colonel Volodymyr Liamzin. Please turn on the slides and the presentation. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I am Colonel Liamzin, Chief of the Central Civil Military Cooperation Department of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Welcome our guests, welcome those who are watching us online. Today I'm going to brief you about the new direction, the current directions of the civil military cooperation development, the prospects of development, and as well as the current state of the civil military CIMIC during the repulse of the Russian armed aggression against Ukraine. Please turn on this next slide. As you can see on the slide, you can see the main issues I'm gonna discuss today. You can see the map, and I'm sure that everyone saw this map. It depicts the territories regained by the Ukrainian armed forces. Territories regained after the start of the aggression are in blue color, and the red color are those occupied now. This map also depicts not only the territories but the scale and the range of tasks our defense forces have to implement now because of the Russian armed aggression. Now you can also see the old-fashioned figures. They are of the February this year, and these are the damages and losses Ukraine suffers right now. Billions of money, hundreds of thousands of killed, hundreds of thousands Ukrainians killed during the war. Now, please, the next slide. Now, as for the measures taken by the CIMIC and by the state, the government, as well as all bodies of authorities, these are depicted on the slides. The first thing is that we imposed the martial law. We also manned and introduced the territorial defense forces. We formed up military administrations. You can also see the other measures depicted on the slide. And the CIMIC units themselves also took almost every part in these measures. The main thing and attribute of the CIMIC of the armed forces of Ukraine is that we work and operate and we engage on our own territory and with our people. If we take and talk about NATO countries, we know that their CIMIC units perform tasks on the territory of other states. There are also other attributes and peculiarities concerned to other cultures, other countries, other population. For us in Ukraine, we work and interact with the Ukrainian population. We cannot differentiate who is in front of us. Is it a friend or foe? Because people can wear our Ukrainian uniform. They can treat and behave as a Ukrainian. However, we cannot know for sure who these people are working for. And the second thing is that the CIMIC of the armed forces of Ukraine are also responsible for the search and repatriation measures and activities on the territory of Ukraine. So the CIMIC units themselves and the CIMIC representatives themselves operate and partake in such search, body search measures of the servicemen of the armed forces of Ukraine. They also engage and are actively involved in repatriation activities and measures from the temporarily occupied territories, as well as to transfer Russian killed and died soldiers to the aggressor party. Now, as for the main and core functions of the Ukrainian CIMIC, our functions are based on the core NATO countries' functions. We also relied on the US Armed Forces experience as well. However, I'll talk about it later, but the experience gained since 24 February of the last year makes us review, reread, rewrite, and reconsider our considerations concerning CIMIC activities, and our partners are actively involved and are helping us to do that, and we are grateful to them for these measures. Despite the war, despite the ongoing war right now, we still function and train abroad. As I mentioned before, we have 3 adjacent NATO functions. This is the liaison, forces support measures, as well as non-military and civilian environment support. These are the NATO adjacent measures. And the 4th function, which is inherent in our activities, are search and repatriation. At the same time, as I mentioned before, the experience of the war makes us reconsider and rewrite and think it over, think about the key documents, doctrines, and the availability of our assets. And now we can say that we will change the functions of the CIMIC, and the main core of functions will be the maintenance of civil-military cooperation and liaison. It's number 1, and number 2 is the civilian environment support and maintenance, as well as interaction with the Ukrainian armed forces, and how it will affect the task's performance. As for the forces support, facilities and non-military environment support, these functions are going to be discussed and reconsidered, taking into account the experience gained during the war. And we can say for sure that our functions, our structures and facilities have been working non-stop 24/7, and given the available assets and forces, we are going to slightly change the approach to this task's performance. In addition, we will also reconsider, and we will add that civil-military cooperation is a shared and joint function of the armed forces of Ukraine, like NATO. So as it not was like before, that it was just the sole responsibility of the organic units. But now it's going to be about the whole armed forces function. And on this slide you can see the main activities Ukrainian CIMIC have been involved in during the repulse of the armed aggression of the Russian Federation against Ukraine. You can see the interaction and coordination evacuation activities. These functions haven't stopped at all. We also performed coordination measures on humanitarian assistance to danger areas, because we know that population really needed those assistance there. We also collected information from the civilian information on the enemy advance, on the enemy movements and deployment. We also had a number of call lines, and any civilian persons seeing enemy movement and advance can call the number and send pictures to that, so our structures can respond and engage the enemy. We also supported all components of the security and defense forces, not only in the vicinity of hostile areas, but around the whole Ukrainian territories. We also had other engagement measures, but I will take a look at them later. Now, as for evacuation, everything has been set up at the state level. And every information Vice President Irina Vereshchuk measures and routes told by her were previously coordinated with the civil bodies. So every routes have been approved and confirmed with the military. Sometimes these routes have not been approved because of the danger level, but every day, thanks to the coordination and interaction with the government and the state, we performed evacuation from the hostile areas. Unfortunately, we have sad experience on evacuation, and I'll focus on this one more time, because it can indicate the tricky nature of the enemy. Because as they know about the evacuation measures performed by Ukraine, Russia deliberately engaged concentration and collection points of civilian population to be evacuated. You know the tragic events of Kramatorsk and other regions, because when we saw the true face and true nature of the enemy. So you know the pre-story, we collected people there to evacuate, but the enemy hit by missiles and aviation strikes to those areas. As I mentioned before, we have not stopped at all to interact and engage with international organizations, namely to provide humanitarian assistance. A short list of the international organizations provided medications, food, first need supplies are on the slide. So directions and areas of these assistance have been also coordinated by the CIMIC. I also want to let you know, and I also want you to see the informational campaigns and platforms we performed to raise awareness of the population on the disgraceful acts and deeds of the Russian Federation, and how they grossly violate norms of international humanitarian law. It's no secret for everyone that over the last year, starting from the February 24, hundreds of thousands of bodies of the enemy have been laying on the ground, and Russia did not take any measures to pick them up and repatriate and bring them back. We also were involved in this, and such news agencies as BBC, France Presse, CNN raised awareness and shared information on how occupants and invaders share their bodies, value their warriors, and how they treat them. And I have a personal opinion that it was one of the elements, one of those bricks, how we started to develop and build up our repatriation process. We picked up our killed in action from the occupied territories, and we also started to bring back the bodies of the occupants to them. Namely, the bodies of soldiers, Russian soldiers died in Bucha, Irpin, and in other areas. We had some news articles, and we raised awareness about the money seized by the Russians. We also saw jewelries covered in blood, so we can assume that Russians grabbed the jewelry from the people and they stole them. Now, as for the main changes of the Ukrainian CIMIC, you can also see on the slide. Despite the active stage of the repulse of the large-scale aggression, we still continue to develop, train our personnel. CIMIC training is ongoing. One of the training areas and directions are to perform a training of officers. Our training groups, training teams are deployed and perform training of those who were not be able to get a proper level of CIMIC. Our training teams also operate in the rehabilitation areas of our units, or sometimes it can also be in the deployment areas. We also provide sustainment and support programs, and it is performed as a measure of the whole armed forces, not a specific one. We also raise situational awareness of the CIMIC units, their commanders, other leaders in the civilian environment, and it helps the commander to take proper and correct decisions. As I mentioned before, as we talk about the territorial defense forces, we also involve and engage there, namely in the CIMIC area. And we have the largest portion of tactical level units over there. That is why they need the direct support and assistance, as well as training I have mentioned before. We also continue to support the civil military, to maintain civil military cooperation with all local self-government bodies, other structures, public associations, which help us to bring our victory closer. As you can see on this slide, we can see the lessons learned, and I'm sure that you will agree with me that our main achievement is of the whole Ukrainian people is that we did not understand and realize our resilience and our force. The enemy did not expect how Ukrainian forces and Ukrainian population would resist. And this is one of the greatest achievements we gained, and it showed the enemy how we can fight them. We also seen the high level of communication between the armed forces of Ukraine, security and defense forces, and the civil environment. So as before, we had this only in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, in the Joint Forces Operation area there. And it was a completely new thing, an unknown thing on the other territories. But as the results of the repulse, we can see And we have seen the high level of interaction between CIMIC and other bodies. I also want to thank, so as I mentioned before, you can see this on the slide, our takeaways we achieved. But now I want to thank every person, every citizen of Ukraine, every person who put their time, put their efforts in bringing our victory closer. I want to express gratitude to those who fight and operate on the peaceful territory while performing their main tasks. I want to thank all people who fight right now, who are fighting right now on the engagement areas, and I'm sure that there is no doubt in everyone who is here that how we need to fight back the enemy, and how we have to win, and how we have to move towards the civilized Western world as a Western country. And we have to live the way that our children, our grandchildren will not have to think about what happened in 2014 and in the beginning of the 2022. So there will not be any chance to make it possible again, as Russians say. Now I'm willing to take your questions. Do we have any questions? Thank you to our speaker. You were briefed by the director of the Civil Military Cooperation Department, Colonel Volodymyr Liamzin. This is Military Media Center, the only information platform of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Stand united for the victory.